Hello everybody, I hope you are fine. As you know, birds are singing, but it's not a sunny day. During this beautiful afternoon of September 3 of 78, at the Saarbrucken Summer Open Air Festival, the fact of having been able to interview Frank Zappa, which was the subject of my video last week, gave me wings to go in search for new interviews. I must admit that in view of the fantastic lineup of this festival, my main objective was to be able to easily stay in the pit among the crowd of international photographers to shoot all the stars that were performing on the fantastic lineup that day. It was impressive to have just a few meters away from you and with excellent visibility, Genesis, Alvin Lee and the 10 Years After, John McLaughlin and the One Through Band, Brand X, Scorpions, Joan Baez and Frank Zappa. There was an incredible festive atmosphere there with 45,000 people coming not only from various places in Germany, but also from neighboring countries such as Luxembourg and France. It was also the first time that German promoters Fritz Rau, Lippmann and Scheller organized an event of this size. The weather was fine and the beer was flowing. On the backstage side, most of the artists were showing immense joy at being out of their respective tours and were chatting around a drink. A few game tables were installed behind the stadium to kill the traditional waiting before going on stage. Roadies and the technical team were in a hurry with material and equipment. On the star sides, some of them were playing table tennis, others played pool. I was able to play some table soccer with John McLaughlin. It was impressive to see this sharing between artists, managers, journalists. Guys, the real rock and roll magic. One of the great attractions of this event was the fact to seeing Phil Collins on stage playing in two bands, touching two different styles, progressive rock with Genesis and jazz rock with Brand X. Wandering for a moment in the huge place where the caravans were used as backstage, I saw on a door the name Phil Collins. I knocked at the door and I found myself face to face with a blondie and very excited guy, surprised to see me. Hello Phil, would you agree to give us an interview for Portugal? Then he said, Portugal? If you are Portuguese, you must know Eusébio, right? Of course, Phil. Who didn't know him? So I grant you an interview if afterwards you agree to play a little soccer time with me. Okay, Phil, no problem. With pleasure. We settled on a piece of grass behind the caravans and Phil gave a pleasant conversation that revolved around the department from the band of Stick Hackett, which at the time left them in a very uncomfortable situation. His answer to my question, what were the exact reasons for the departure of Steve Hackett, was very explicit. Steve had expressed his desire to record his second solo album. We had nothing against that because Genesis had always been a democratic and open-minded band. It turned out that we were committed to preparing a new album, Seconds Out, and Steve claimed to keep some compositions from his solo album. As there was enough material for two albums, we asked him to work on his solo album after that one of Genesis. What made the most sense Then we got into a copyright dispute. Steve put his solo work first while putting Genesis in a delicate and unacceptable position. In short, a real scandal. When Gabriel left, it was very difficult for us. At the time, he embodied the strength of the group. But we had been very correct with us. With Steve, it was just the opposite. When someone is not interested in collective work, the best thing to do is to leave. We stayed on good terms and had been great friends with Peter Gabriel. With Steve Hackett, our attitudes were different. Anyway, if we see him again on the road, I'm sure we will understand each other. But the evil persists. Even today, I don't understand his attitude. This is what Phil Collins told me in an interview, the 3 September 78. And we continued chatting, and I even started to imagine that Peter Gabriel could one day come back to Genesis. However, Phil considered that the two paths were traced and that it would be very difficult to see it. Something promised, something due. After a good half an hour interview with the man who was going to go up twice on stage, Phil took a ballon and we left a few meters from there to practice a little near the fire trucks present to ensure the site security. He played a lot and I still had nice leftovers because soccer was always one of my favorite sports in Portugal. But from time to time, Phil suddenly threw the ball against the windshields of the trucks, which obviously angered the firefighters and made them growl. At one point, it annoyed Phil and he came up to me and said, "José, do you speak German?" I said, "No, not at all. But Elizabeth, my wife, speaks it correctly." So we approached to Elizabeth and told her, "Can you please tell him that if I break a windshield, I will buy him a fire truck?" We laughed a lot, but Elizabeth bowed to the task and went to the fireman and told me. I'm sure he didn't know who this soccer player was, and I suppose he even didn't really understand the joke. When we said goodbye, happy to have done a little unusual exercise, Phil, with the soccer ball under his arms, told me, "Don't miss Bob Dylan's concert. It seems it will be a surprise visit." For a surprise, it was a huge surprise. Indeed, Joan Baez had decided to disguise herself as Bob Dylan, and during her set, she made the blown away public believe it, singing Blowing in the Wind and imitating Dylan's voice. On stage, the welcome dedicated to Genesis was fabulous. Undoubtedly, this was the beginning of a musical turn which introduced tones more turned towards pop music in the kingdom of prog rock. Phil also had a blast on stage with his jazz fusion band Brand X, which he would leave a few months later for obvious reasons of lack of time. I would come across Phil Collins 2 or 3 times in my life, especially here in Colmar with Genesis, and in Paris during the first final farewell tour. He lives now under the Miami sun. What a lucky man! Which probably does the most good for all of his health problems. After announcing the end of his career 10 years ago, the coronavirus stopped the plan to put Genesis back on the road. Some concerts in England were already announced, and they even had a record in mind. What a pity. Well, this is the story of my first interview with a man who one day committed the feat of playing one on the same day on two different continents, America and Europe, a smart and funny guy supporting some soccer teams and a perfect lover for beautiful girls. Don't miss his autobiographical book, Not Dead Yet. His very hectic but fascinating life will keep you in suspense until the end. I hope you enjoy. We stay in touch. Stay safe, be careful with this virus, and see you very soon. Bye bye.